PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I'm going to show you a game that features the Morra Gambit. A real speciality in club chess and online as well, and shouldn't be underestimated. Nevertheless, Black should be doing well, and damn it, it's an extra pawn, you know. So this is how the game went. You can also arrive at this position via this move order. That's another way to go for Black as well. And so on. There we go, we transpose. So this game was played by Kevin Glosser playing Black, and he's playing against an IM in a rapid play game online. We've already seen a game by Kevin. You might recall a crushing Kalashnikov that he played with Black. I showed you that about a week ago, or a little bit more than that. And he also sent in this game to me, and it's definitely worth a look. A lot of people say that they're put off playing the Sicilian because of all these anti-Sicilian variations, such as, well, the Morra, the Alpin, the Rossolimo Grand Prix attack, and so on. And in my early days, I also felt a similar kind of frustration if I couldn't get in my open Sicilian. But actually, with experience, my attitude changed, because basically a lot of these anti-Sicilian lines aren't that good for white. And it always felt as though my opponents were simply too scared to play into my sharp open Sicilian. So I felt as though I'd sort of won a psychological battle. You've got to reframe your attitude somehow. Anyway, let's crack on with this game, because it's actually very interesting. So this is how the game started. And there we are, the Morra Gambit. D6. Now, in my anti-Sicilians course, I give this as the main line, A6, this tricky little move, and then knight F6. And this is an important move order. You have to play A6 first. Yes, I realise, once again, it's one of these little pawn moves at the side of the board, but in this specific case, it's a good idea for Black to do that. The point is this, that White can't break open the position, or it's not particularly good, because in this case, White isn't able to attack with knight b5, and in this case, well, Black has an extra pawn basically. So that's the point of it. But in this case, instead of the normal bishop c4, White played bishop g5. So this is very unusual. So I'm guessing that White played this to discourage Black from playing knight f6, which is, but actually it's possible. I mean, this wouldn't bother me. Even though Black's pawns have been damaged a little bit, I still think because of the bishops, Black is fine here. And Kevin says about bishop g5, he says that he was sure that his IM opponent was simply trying to play something unfamiliar to confuse him. But he says, however, it appears to be a garbage move to me. I agree with you, Kevin. I've played many title players in the past, and they all do the same thing, which is generally to play garbage against me because I'm not titled. And then when they lose the game, they bring out their real openings for revenge. That's very interesting. Anyway, Kevin played what I think is the most principled move, the best move, and that's h6. Let's just put the question to the bishop. And after bishop h4, there is absolutely nothing wrong with playing g5. In fact, I think this is very strong because it helps Black develop. You know, this bishop is on a good diagonal. I don't think there's any problem having the pawn on g5. In fact, this is a very common setup in a lot of Sicilian variations where the g5 pawn controls f4, which means it's easier to control the e5 square. So let me just do a quick compare and contrast. For example, in the Najdorf, it's a very common strategy in the Najdorf. This particular variation against bishop e3, knight g4, you push the bishop around and play bishop g7. This is very respectable for Black. as I said, this pawn controls the f4 square, and it means that black will be able to occupy this square with a piece and is very comfortable. Well, in this case, black is even a pawn up. It's a very similar kind of situation, actually. So bishop c4 played. Now Kevin played a6, so this is like a blueprint from the main line, and Kevin just goes with it and copies and plays a6. In fact, in this case, there is no need to play a6. You can simply develop the knight, and you're ready to castle, play knight h5 to get that dark square bishop, and this is absolutely fine. So yes, castles, you can either play bishop g4 or knight h5. They're both very pleasant for black. And if e5, of course, this is always the critical move if you play knight f6. In fact, black has no difficulties. Exchange of queens. And in this case, knight b5 can simply be met by castles kingside. And this simply isn't a problem for black. And black is just going to be a pawn up with a good position. So I think knight f6 is definitely the best move there. And I think black is absolutely fine. More than fine. Black is a pawn up. But a6 played. I think this is okay, but it can get a little bit tricky. Queen b3 played. Typical Morra. Quick hits. White is going for a quick knockout. Remember, it's a rapid play game online. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you. How would you play here with black? Black to play. I'll have a quick slurp of tea. Cheers. And hopefully you've had time to think things through. Black to play. How would you meet this threat? Well, here you have to get it right. Kevin played e6. I'm afraid that's a mistake because it weakens the d6 pawn. You need to take your time here. If you get it right, then black is on the road to victory. But calculation is needed. And, well, in a rapid play game, you don't have that much time. You know, when do you invest the time? It's tricky. Knight a5 is correct. And the point is this. If bishop takes pawn check, king f8, now the queen has to keep the connection with the bishop. So therefore queen d5, but then knight f6, and the queen is forced away, and black is simply a piece up, winning position. And after knight a5, of course, white can step with the queen, but then knight takes, queen takes. Well, black is a pawn up and has managed to grab that light squared bishop, and, well, not only is black a pawn up, but also has these two beautiful bishops, and casting is going to happen soon. I mean, pawn up, great position, basically. So yes, queen b3 should have been met by knight a5. Unfortunately, e6, it's not a good move. Rook d1. Now, I mean, black isn't lost yet, but it's tricky, and really you have to play a series of only moves in order to survive here. You've got to play actually b5, which looks pretty risky. Because after this, in fact, amazingly, black can survive, but it looks pretty nasty. But knight a5 played. Queen b4. Knight takes, queen takes. There's still a massive problem with this pawn. Black is in trouble. And yes, in this case, all these pawn moves, because black is behind development, now black is suffering. Bishop f8. Ooh, the undeveloped. It sounds like a zombie movie somehow. Yeah, you can see black is in massive trouble with all these pieces on the back rank. And in fact, white can play this very simply. Queen b4, threatening to take here, is really powerful. And if d5, then queen b3, and white is going to break through. But white played bishop d6. And this was a miscalculation. Bishop takes d6 and e5. A terrible blunder. I think white underestimated his opponent. How do you save things with black? Queen c7. Very simple. So an exchange of queens would leave black a piece up. So queen a4 check, bishop d7. If pawn takes d6, then there's this, and you take on a4. So queen b3, bishop e7, and black is a piece up. Okay, there's still a little bit of trouble as black is behind development. This piece, this knight can't move at the moment. Rook here. Nevertheless, it should be winning. White decides to go all in. He's thinking, okay, in for a penny, in for a pound. Now it's two pieces. And f4, is this a little bit scary? It is a bit scary. Black's king is on the end of that rook, but actually Kevin negotiates it. g4 is the best move, but okay, bishop c5 also did the job, and then g4, very important to keep the f-file closed. Knight e4 keeps white going, that would be the best move. But instead, knight d5, queen c6. Obviously an exchange of queens is going to be winning for black. Bishop e6, and now the knight goes back, and this is just very good for black now. The queen is forced back. Bishop f5, wow, I'm sure that move must have come as a big relief, blockading, preventing knight e4. Bishop c5. So black has some control here. This is quite nice, and a really nice blockade on the light squares. Okay, white is still thrashing around, throwing things forwards. Got to watch out for perhaps a little check here, but rook h7, really nice move. So that rook just needs to get into the game. Can swing across here somewhere. Don't worry, that bishop will come into the game at some point. Remember, black is two pieces up. I mean, a move like this, just sacking back an exchange, is going to be winning. Okay, white is still heading forward, so it's a bit scary, but that can just be taken. And now the simplest move is just king g7. Just bringing the king to safety, but Kevin was eager to exchange. And this is also winning. I mean, it does simplify. He gets there in the end at queen f7. Solid, super solid. It's a belt and braces approach. Just chasing down. And yeah, I mean, at the end of it, white has this passed pawn on b6, but basically there's nothing left at the other end of the board. White's king is in desperate trouble. Queen e1, mate threatened here, h4, g3, and that keeps the king locked in. Queen e1 check and mate next move. Kevin says, the technique used to finish it off was definitely not my best. It was good enough. However, I'll make the excuse that I was down a lot of time and in a strange land, confused and tilted. I'm not proud of that game, but he never got back to even, and ultimately he got what he deserved. That is, being forced to resign with mate on the board. Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Not a perfect game, but quite good enough. Did the job. And yeah, very interesting to see, you know, what happens when white just does something a little bit different, but actually this plan with h6 and g5 is absolutely fine for black. I think this is an interesting moment, you know, where white plays queen b3. I think this happens very often with gambits, where the person playing the gambit gets some early activity. And if you negotiate that early activity well, then it'll be plain sailing. But it takes courage to just kind of stop for a moment and think, okay, this is the critical moment. So here, e6 mistake, but it's knight a5. I think just gives black a fantastic position. There you go. A lot of people have been asking about my Anti-Sicilians course. Of course, it's available from Chessable, but the book version will be coming out in the early summer. I will let you know when I hear about the publication date, but I haven't heard yet. And other news, there is a reduction day at ChessBase, so all my courses are on offer, 25% discount for 24 hours. So reduction day at ChessBase. Do check out all my stuff there. I cover openings, middle games, positional stuff, tactics, end games. I think there are 28 DVDs now on downloads. Queen's Gambit for black, King's Gambit for white, all kinds of stuff. So do check that out. I'll put the link down in the video description and in the comments as well. Thanks for watching.